Right. Good morning, everybody. Shavua Tov. Welcome back to Shmuel Bet, chapter 10. Okay. We spoke last week about half beards and cutting off garments and all sorts of strange things went on. And the end of it, as is often the case, was war. That's often what happens, isn't it? We end up with a war. And unfortunately, that's what happened on this occasion. Let's go straight to it. Chapter 10. Let's put it on the screen. Jeffrey, are you there? I can only see your name, not your face. No, Jeffrey's not there yet. Right. Okay. So I'll do it. So let's just do what we did, what we've said. David decided that he owed Nachash a favor, as it were. He'd done favor for him, looked after his son. Nachash died, and David wanted to be Menachem Oval, sent his servants through to Ammon to send David's condolences, to represent David at the Shiva, as it were, of Hanun, sitting Shiva, as it were, for his father Nachash. Hanun, who was the king, he has some advisors who don't like the look of this at all and think that it's a Trojan horse, that David sent in people to spy the city out. Hanun, we're not sure whether he actually believes this or not, because if he did believe it, he would have executed them, and he didn't. What he did do was he put them to shame. He shaved off half their beards and cut off their garments. I think Hannah wanted to say that he cut off the top half, and I think everybody else seems to think that they cut off the bottom half. Either way, it was a bit pretty shameful sort of thing for them to do. And the message got back to David, verse 5, and they told it to David, and he sent to meet them, for the men were very much ashamed. And the king said, remain seated in Jericho until your beards grow, and then you can return. And we had a little discussion last week about Jericho, because Jericho had been destroyed and was not allowed to be rebuilt, at least by Jews anyway. And presumably,
Jonathan, you said last week that David went out to meet them, but actually he didn't go. He sent other people to
no,
them.
I realised that after the shiur last week that I did say that he went out to meet them. He sent to meet them. Yes, he sent messages out to meet them. He sent his people out. You're quite right to point that out. And the message was either way, to stay in the Jericho area until your beards grow. And they chose the Jericho area for a simple reason. And that is, what was the point of this? The point was that nobody should see them in their shameful situation with half a beard. So a good place to hide out will be a place where there aren't any Israelites. There would be no Israelites in Jericho because there had been a cherem put on Jericho. Talking about cherem, by the way, I just want to give a little plug to something that I'm listening to at the moment, which is absolutely fascinating. My son Bobby actually put me onto this. It's a podcast by Rabbi Aubrey Hirsch, who some of you may be familiar with. Anybody know Rabbi Aubrey Hirsch or his work?
He's fantastic. I've listened to so many of his.
Right, so I'm listening to some of his podcasts as a series called History for the Curious, which the episode that I listened to this morning on my run around Ir Yamim was about a cherem, that was a very, very early cherem, which was attempted to be put on somebody called by somebody called Mordechai Hamburger. and it was absolutely fascinating. And I learned lots and lots of interesting things about history on it. And I'd thoroughly recommend this podcast to anybody who's got the little bite-sized things, 20 minutes at a time. And he takes individual episodes in Jewish history and explores them in great depth. And this particular one was about a cherem, ultimately what it was about was communities splitting, breakaway shuls. So, and this was in the late 1600s, early 1700s. So, ein chadash tachat hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. This has been going on for hundreds of years, but it's absolutely fascinating, and I recommend it to you. Why am I telling you that? Because of the word cherem. The Jericho was in cherem. There was a cherem against rebuilding Jericho, and that's why it was a good place for these people to sit around waiting for their beards to grow, and then they would come back.
Johnny, could you put a link on your?
I will indeed. I will indeed
WhatsApp.
put a link. I'll put a link on this share group after the share. Very, very. Actually, what happened was, just as an aside, I started to listen to a different history thing, but it was. I won't tell you which one it was because it was awful. It was two American people, and it was so contrived. And the interesting, the stuff was interesting, but it was superficial and contrived. Whereas, and then my son put me onto this one, which is really well presented and extremely well researched, and definitely recommend it. Right. Okay. So the men are sat there in Jericho waiting for their beards to grow. In the meantime, verse 6, Jeffrey, please. We're chapter 10, verse 6. In your art scroll, if you would.
The children of Ammon realized that they had become repugnant to David. So the children of Ammon sent and hired from Aram of Beth Rechob and Aram of Zobah 20,000 footmen, and from the king of Makkah 1,000 men, and from Ishtov 12,000 men.
Okay, let's just stop there for a minute. We're not going to get too hung up on these numbers. Those of you who were in the Gemara share on Wednesday will have heard the most extreme example of exaggeration of numbers in Tanakh. We worked out that according to the opinion in the Gemara, Shlomo HaMelech had, can anyone remember the number of horses? Michael, I bet you can remember. How many horses did the Gemara say that Shlomo HaMelech had?
I got 1.6 million somewhere. That might have been the sheep.
No, you're not far wrong. You're just a few decimal places out. 160 million, we worked it out at. 4,000 stalls, each 4,000 stables, each with 40,000 stalls, all the other way around. 4,000 times 40,000, we worked out was 160 million. I then asked ChatGPT to tell me how many horses are in existence in the world today, and it was 60 million, 60 to 65 million. So it was clearly an exaggeration. So we're not going to go into the actual numbers. What it means is he hired a lot of mercenary soldiers. So verse 6 tells us that the children of Ammon, Bnei Ammon, saw that they had become odious to David. What did you say, Jeffrey? Your word was good as well.
Repugnant.
Repugnant. Yeah, why was they become repugnant to David? Because, well, they just shamed David's people. So presumably they realized that there would be a price to pay for that. David is not renowned for turning the other cheek, as it were. So David, they think is going to attack them. And so he sends off for hired mercenaries. Now, I think I got ready something. Where is it? Oh, not there now. I thought I had a map ready for you. 1 second while I just find you a map that I got ready. Don't know what I've done with it now. Give me a sec. There it is.
It's not on the screen yet.
No, I'm going to put it on the screen now, I hope. I'm going to try and put it on the screen. Yes. There we go. There we go. See the map?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So he sent to Aram Rehov, which we know is around up here, where we had that from a previous map, Ma'akah and Ishtov. So these are the areas. This is Ammon here, and just for orientation, there's the Kinneret, there's Yam HaMelech, okay. This is Judea and Samaria, Yerushalayim being around about what there, something like that, and there's Haifa, obviously. We're about over here. So you can see where we are. We are, and this, of course, is Jordan. Ammon, which is the people that we're now about to fight, went north and brought mercenaries from the north, from what is present-day Syria, Ma'akah and Tov. Okay, so that's where they are. And they've got a lot of them. It's got a lot of mercenaries ready to fight. Now, what interests me is this. Just do verse 7 for us, Jeffrey.
David heard, and he dispatched Joab and all the mighty men of the army.
Stop there. So, is it me, or is there something not right here? Ammon think that they've become repugnant to David. We're not told that David is feeling badly towards Ammon. We can assume it, but we're not told that. And then they get an army together. And in verse 7, David hears of it and he gets his army together. So is it me, or is there something missing here? David, between verses 5 and 6, we ought to have, David says to the men, stay where you are in Jericho until your beards grow, and then you'll return. And if I was writing this, and I would put, and David was very angry indeed with the Bnei Ammon for having shamed his soldiers and thought to take revenge. But we're not told that, are we?
It's implied, though. It's implied in the in the first a few posuks of this chapter, because of the shaming, and it is implied. And so what my interpretation of that, Johnny, for whatever it's worth, is he's put the army on alert.
Right. David's put the army on alert because he heard that Ammon had got all these mercenaries together. Verse 7 tells us clearly that the reason that he got his army ready was because he saw the enemy massing on his northeastern front. But what I'm getting at here, and I agree it is implied, but what I'm getting at here is I just wonder, it's a bit like my knowledge of history of the First World War is a bit sketchy, to be honest, but from what I can gather, the First World War was triggered by a fairly innocuous event. Well, I suppose it wasn't innocuous if you were France that got killed.
I'm sorry, it was a political assassination.
Okay, all right, but you wouldn't expect necessarily a political assassination to set off a world war. a relatively innocuous event. Let's put it that way.
Well,
And I just this here, one sec, I just want to develop this point. I just wonder whether this is an example of hot-headedness all round, that assumptions all round. Ammon has assumed that since they've shamed their soldiers, David is going to take his revenge. Actually, we're not told that David intended to take his revenge. Remember, by this time, David is married to Abigail, who is a very positive influence on him, a very calming influence on him, and has on more than one occasion prevented him from flying off the handle. Maybe we've got a different David altogether, and maybe if Ammon hadn't amassed these large numbers of mercenaries, this war would never have happened. And I just point that out. I mean, maybe it's completely wrong, I don't know, but it just occurred to me that there's something going on here, that this might have been avoided if hot-headedness hadn't had its day, as it were. And of course, the reason I'm saying that is because there's precedent for today, isn't there? We wonder whether diplomacy is a better way of dealing with things. Right, we've got a few hands up there. Let's go to Jeffrey first, and then Hannah, and then Peter. Jeffrey.
I think David wasn't for appeasement. He saw that he heard that there was trouble brewing from the east. He prepared his army to be on alert. And, you know, armies need to have rest. So soldiers come back and have a bit of respite. But then trouble's brewing in the east, and he calls his generals to call the army to be on alert. That's my reading of it.
I don't think you're wrong, but what I'm saying, I don't think it's incompatible with what I'm saying. That isn't what actually happened. What I'm suggesting is that could have been avoided, and I wonder if Ammon jumped to a conclusion that they had become odious to David incorrectly. It's just a suggestion. Yes, Hannah.
I think that David knew where he was living, in what area, as opposed to us, and he understood that after his messengers have been shamed, he has to do something. Yeah, and I think Ammon also understood that they're not going to get away with having done what they did. And therefore, in terms of the neighborhood we live in, if you don't respond, then you're weakened. And melech hamochel al kvodo lo mochal. Yeah, a king can't give up on his respect, on the way people see him. And so, Ammon knew this. And we saw last time that we talked that Ammon's suspicion, the advisor's suspicions that David had sent messengers to spy out their land wasn't so unheard of in that time and in that neighborhood. We saw it with the Plishtim when David came. Plishtim didn't want to have a bar of him because they thought that he was going to spy out the land. And it's something that people did. Joshua did it in Jericho.
I think you make a very fair point. That's a very fair point. So I think what you're saying, if I understand, is that doing this shaming of David's soldiers was not the innocuous event that I'm just describing. Actually, it was a declaration of war.
Yes, definitely. That was the mindset of the people at the time.
Fair enough. I accept that. I accept that actually David could not afford to not respond in, I suppose, the same way as somebody attacks your place. You can't afford not to respond to try and deter a further attack. Yeah, okay.
In our day and age, on the 7th of October, Bibi had no choice but to declare war back. We were
Agreed.
attacked, and you declare war. That's
Agreed.
it.
Agreed. Okay, agreed. All right, Peter.
No, I think on the background of knowing that people sent spies all the time there, it seems to me that, and also David's reputation as being the most feared warrior at the time. You know, why would the soldiers or the servants of Hanun deliberately provoke David, knowing that he would undoubtedly respond to that? I mean, it was a humiliation of his men. And given that, you know, okay, they're coming to spy, okay, that's what they do. But why humiliate them and therefore provoke David and lay themselves open to revenge by David, which almost certainly, haven't read the coming chapters, but I'm sure it was pretty disastrous for them.
Good point. So, you could argue the same in today, couldn't you? You know, you what's the word? You stir the hornet's nest, then you've got to be prepared to be stung.
Yeah, but that was, in terms of Hamas, that was a central part of their thinking. You know, that they knew that the reaction would be massive, and they suspected that world opinion would favour them, which is exactly what happened.
Actually, they thought that we'd give up after a couple of months, that we wouldn't have the staying power.
Yeah.
We don't know what they really thought. But anyway, go on, Jeffrey.
They saw weakness. Ammon saw weakness. They saw David as if they could if they could defeat David, they would become the powerhouse of that region. And it was an important region. It was a crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. So, you know, they stood to gain a lot by defeating David. And the fact was, you know, they were showing their might. Now,
so that's an interesting. Let me stop you there, Jeffrey, because that's an answer to what Peter just said. Peter just said, well, you know, they must have known they were going to cop it from David. What you're saying, and I think that's right, is, well, they were ready for the battle. They thought they could win.
Yeah.
But the text says, and the children of Ammon realized that they'd overreacted, that they'd become repugnant. Yeah. So I think, plain and simple, they made a mistake. People make mistakes sometimes.
That's an interesting. So that's interesting. Let me just go on that, because what Jeffrey has said is that Ammon fancied themselves here. Ammon fancied a fight with David and thought that they could win it. Well, let's just go back one step. Peter said, why would they do such a thing? David was the superpower at the time. Why would they put themselves in that position? They were obviously going to get a schmeissing. Jeffrey says, no, actually, they fancied themselves. They had a lot to gain by this, and they thought they could beat David. Hannah is saying, and I have to say, I think that I personally, I think I'm going with Hannah on this, that they thought they did this shaming in the heat of the moment, as it were, and once they'd done it, they thought, oh, blooming heck, that might not have been such a clever thing to do. We've really stirred the hornet's nest here. David's likely to attack us. We better get some help. And so that's why they sent off to get all these mercenaries, because they themselves were not powerful enough to defend David. I like that theory. I think that theory works. First, Barbara, and then Michael.
Do we have any idea how many men David had? Because we know that they've got these, what have they got? 33,000 men or something.
We're not told numbers, but we are told.
I understand that it's not accurate.
Yeah. We're not told numbers of David, but we are told, and you'll see as we go on in the next few psukim, that he got his, you know, his Sayer at Metkal. He got the whole, the real crack troops. He got his best army together, so he took it seriously. We're not told the numbers, but we are told the quality. Michael.
Right, I read it maybe slightly differently, that actually he hired all these mercenaries because all the troops, if you go on even to the next word, next verse, it says he arrayed his troops in front of the city gates. Basically, he was going to defend himself against David. He wasn't intending to attack David.
That's interesting. So again, that would fit with Hannah's theory that maybe they've overdone it here. And now they need to defend themselves for what is going to be an inevitable attack. So that would fit with that theory. Yes, point. Philip.
By the way, I think that to come back to the present, talking about war, there's been no official declaration of war against Hamas. But somebody, I think it was Hano, said that Bibi declared war. He never declared war officially.
He did on the 8th of October. He declared war. He said, "We are now at war with Hamas."
All right.
I remember.
Right.
Okay. Right. Let's go on. Okay, that's really interesting. It just occurred to me that there was something missing there, and the fact that we've had a few different approaches, which I think we've got a nice theory here, which I think fits. The theory, let's just summarize it. David, in all innocence, sent messengers to send condolences to Hanun. Hanun's advisors thought he was sending spies, which he wasn't. Hanun, I don't think, really believed them, otherwise he'd have killed them. But in order to show David what's what, they shamed them and sent them back. They then thought, maybe that wasn't such a clever thing to do. David's a powerful man. He's also not renowned for sitting back. He's probably going to attack us. We need reinforcements. They sent up to the northeast to get all these mercenaries to come and help them. And as we will see, David takes it seriously and gets his crack troops together. So we've just done verse 7. Let's do 7 again and carry on from there, Jeffrey.
David heard, and he dispatched Joab and all the mighty men of the army. The children of Ammon came out and waged war at the opening of the gateway, while Aram of Zobah and Rehob and Ishtob and Makkah were in the field by themselves. Right,
stop there. This is where we need Philip's help. He's the military expert, or so he says anyway. What's going on here? David gets his entire host, Kol Hatzava. So there's Barbara, there's your answer. Kol Hatzava, right? Kol Hatzava. We're not told the numbers, but presumably it's a lot because it's all his army. Hagiborim, the mighty army, all of the top guys, all the crack units, Givati, Golani, all those ones. They're all sent with Yoav. Now it's important. Yoav's important. Why is Yoav important? Who is Yoav?
Commander.
Yoav is David's chief of staff.
Ramatkal.
Chief of staff. Ramatkal, yeah. So the Ramatkal himself is involved.
It's
another example, another hint here that this is being taken seriously. He's sent the big guns out with the Ramatkal. That's the first thing to notice. Now, the children of Ammon came out and they prepared the battle at the entrance of the gate. And the Arameans and all the mercenaries were by themselves in the field. So what does that mean? Well, have a look at verse 9, Jeffrey, and it'll tell you what it means.
Joab saw that the battlefield faced him from the front and from the rear. So he selected from among all the chosen ones of Israel and deployed against Aram.
Stop there. So what have the enemy done here? The enemy have created two fronts. They've split their their troops and have got, as it seems to me, again, I'm not a great military expert by a long chalk, but it seems to me that what they did was to try and get the Israelites in a pincer, right? They've got them from the front and the back. Jeffrey's nodding a bit. Does that sound about right, Jeffrey?
It's absolutely right, because they were facing them from the front, and then the Allies came up, if you like, from the rear. And
so now Yoav, who's got his men in front of him, appears
The
as we
military
stop
word
here.
is enfilading. To enfilade.
Thank you.
Can I interject?
Yes,
In
go on.
response to how many people did David have in the army, Wikipedia, well, Google, Wikipedia, whatever says, the Bible describes a standing army of 288,000, organized into 12 divisions of 24,000 each, and Chronicles goes to about 1.1 to 1.3 million, depending on how it's seen. So he had a lot of people.
He had a lot of people available. We're not told how many he deployed on this particular battle, but we can assume it was a lot. Those numbers, of course, are not to be taken literally.
Okay, but it's a lot of people.
A lot of people. Yeah, we're agreed it was a lot of people. Thank you for that. Okay, so they're now in this pincer. Yoav sees that the battle was before and behind him. So what did he do? Well, let's have a look and see what he did. Verse 9 again, and then move on to 10 and 11 and 12, Jeffrey, please.
Joab saw that the battlefield faced him from the front and from the rear. So he selected from among all the chosen ones of Israel and deployed against Aram. He placed the rest of the people in the hand of his brother Abishai, and he deployed against the children of Ammon.
Stop there. So let's just take a breath and understand how this battle is unfolding. Ammon have got their own army plus their mercenaries. Their own army is defending the gate presumably to the capital of Ammon. By the way, do we think that the current capital of Jordan, which is in the territory of Ammon, which is called Amman, is related to the name Ammon?
Yeah.
What do you think? I think so, probably.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, because as you can see from the map that I showed you, where is that map gone? We got that map back. Oh, I've done with the map again now. Where's it gone?
It's the bottom right.
Maybe that one. I don't know. Anyway, can't find the map. Anyway, now I've got a frozen screen, so I might have to just unshare it in a sec. So the Ammon army is defending the gate. And the mercenaries have gone into the field and have come behind the Israelites. That's the pincer grip, if you like, whatever it's called, whatever that word that Philip used a minute ago.
Johnny,
yes, Jackie.
Can I add a spin? The Amorites
Yes.
are very clever. They stayed at the gates because Jericho was a walled city. So if they're losing, they can run back behind the wall and then leave the mercenaries in the field to get killed.
Yeah, we're not talking about Jericho. It probably was a walled city where they were, because it would have been fortified, but it was not Jericho. Jericho, of course, is over the other side of the Jordan. I need to get this map back now to show you what we're talking about.
It's on the western bank.
Yeah, but the Ammon is on the eastern bank. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. But it's a gateway. It is the gateway.
Wait a sec.
Because the road to Ammon would go through from Jerusalem through Jericho to Ammon.
Right, let me show you again what we're talking about, just for, oh gosh, I've lost it again. Wait a minute. Here we go. Now I've got 3 maps on my screen now. Oh, yeah, I'm making a right pig's ear of this.
In the meantime, we're back to AI overview. Yes, the Jordanian city of Amman is the modern-day capital that sits on the site of the ancient Rabat Ammon, which was the capital of the Ammonites.
Right, there we go.
Is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities.
Thank you for that. Right.
And the other city from earlier, it was Damascus from the north. The people.
Yeah, well, that's obviously in Syria.
And nothing changes. they're still antagonistic towards us. So nothing changes.
Right.
You might have peace.
Yes, it might change. That's true. I'm struggling here to get my screen back on. Can't see any of you. So just give me a second.
I think that might come too.
Right, we're going to have to manage without. Can you see me? Because I can't see you.
See and hear you.
Okay, good. We'll carry on. We're going to have to manage without the screen because my share screen facility is frozen. But hopefully you've got the text in front of you. So we've got the Ammonites in the front of the gate. We've got the mercenaries behind. And what does Yoav do? Let's have a look again at 9 and 10, Jeffrey.
Yoav saw that the battlefield faced him from the front and from the rear. So he selected from among all the chosen ones of Israel and deployed against Aram. He placed the rest of the people in the hand of his brother Abishai, and he deployed against the children of Ammon.
So he split himself into two as well, right? He's taken the Sayeret Matkal off to the gate to Aram, and the rest of the army is given over to his second in command, who was his brother Avishai. Okay, who can remember the name of the third brother? Yoav, Avishai, and
Ahitophel.
No.
The one that was killed.
Yes, I was about to give you a clue. He was killed by. Who was he killed by?
Avner.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was killed by Avner. What did you say, Hannah?
No, I didn't. I was wrong.
Asael. Remember?
That's right.
Asael. Okay. Anyway.
Oh yeah, he's the one who got him in the rib, right? He got him in the rib.
He did. He got him in the ribs. That's right. So there were three brothers, and they were. Who were their mother? Who was their mother?
Uriah.
Uriah, yeah, Sarura. And who was she?
David's sister.
Correct. Very good. Okay, so we've got our mishpachology right now. Yoav and Avishai are nephews of David. Yoav is chief of staff. Avishai is his second in command, his brother. And he split the people into two here. And look what he says. Jeffrey, verse 11, please.
Before Jeffrey says that, I find it very surprising with the Israel army under David, under Yoav, should have been actually have known that the mercenaries were going behind them. Why didn't you discover this? Why did it seems a little bit naive of them not to have realized what was going on and allowed themselves to be put in a pincer movement.
Intelligence failure, I think.
Yes.
Possibly. What I was about to say, I've got my share screen back now, so I can put the text back on. So what maybe I painted it not quite right, Michael, because as I read it, he didn't allow himself to be pincered. He saw it was happening and reacted to it. by
He
splitting
got himself into
up.
that position in the first place.
Okay. So how did that happen? How did he get to that position in the first place?
We have a
So
precedent.
one second,
when-
Hannah. One second, Hannah. One second. Peter says intelligence failure, very likely. Remember the how did they get their intelligence back in those days?
Human. They used to send in guys who used to, I mean, like the shlichim might have been, the shlichim whose beards were shaved off were considered to be spies. It was human
Spies.
intelligence. There was no such thing as satellites or anything like that today.
Correct. So that's how they got it. It was human intelligence.
Yeah.
And
They had to infiltrate. They had to infiltrate.
And it looks like, and it looks like
we also have a precedent with Yaakov when he goes to meet Esav, that he splits his camp in two, where one half is here and one half is there. And the text here also says
he's more beloved at the back and his less
Yoav says, if they overpower me, then you will come to save me, and if they overpower you, I will come to save you.
Okay, so you've read on there, Hannah. You've
spoiling
the story. Okay, we'll read on and then we'll come back to your point because it's a point that I wanted to raise.
Hold it, but a second. But David, but they knew they already. The only reason, according to the text, both in Divrei Hayamim and in this text, is they knew that the mercenaries had been hired, and therefore they should have known. They would have known that they were going to come down from Syria.
Can you see the map?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah, they knew that they'd hired mercenaries, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know how they'd deployed them. And if you think about it, that if they were deployed behind the Israelites, right, then where is Ammon? Ammon is here. Where is their main city? I don't know, but let's assume it's somewhere in the middle of the country.
It's midway between that point on the right and the crossing
so let's assume
of Jericho, just north of the Dead Sea.
So let's assume it's about over here.
That's Ammon.
Let's assume that's where their main city is. It's not obvious, Michael, that Makkah and Tov are going to come down here behind the advancing army. They could easily have come the other way and defended the gate. So I don't think that David would necessarily know where they were going to be deployed unless somebody told them, which obviously he didn't. What I wanted to show you, Jackie, was you mentioned Jericho. Jericho's over here, right? This is the River Jordan. Fine. See this blue squiggly line? Jericho is over here in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Jericho is in Eretz Yisrael, right? We are talking about Ammon on the other side of the Jordan. If we're really honest, this is in Reuven, Gad, and Chetzi Manasseh territory. 2.5 tribes there. Barbara, who's incredibly right-wing on these things, is nodding her head in agreement there. I can see very, very vigorously. This is where the 2.5 tribes that requested of Moshe to stay on the other side, that's where they were, all over here. And if we go back to our map, if I can find it, let me just see if I can find our map of the tribal map. Let me just see if I can find that to put up for you. Yeah, there we go. Let me see if I can put that up for you. 1 second. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look. There is the River Jordan running between the Kinneret and the Dead Sea, right? And if we probably get both maps side by side if I'm clever. Let's see. Oh, the other one's disappeared now. Where's it gone?
It's underneath the top one.
There it is. Right, let's move that one over here. There we go. I'll move this one over here a bit. There we go. Look at that. Wonderful. See the two maps side by side?
Yep.
So Ammon, on this map, that's Ammon. But in this map, the same territory is bottom half of Manasseh and Gad. If we move this up, Reuven is a bit further down over here. So you can see here, interestingly, if you look at where Manasseh extends to, Manasseh extends up beyond Mount Hermon. Okay, so Manasseh goes to about here, right? You can see.
Huge Manasseh. Manasseh is huge. It's bigger than any
Yeah,
of
you
the
can
other
see
tribes.
the top end of Manasseh is not, is in the area where Ma'akat and Tov are actually. So if we wanted to say so, Manasseh, Gad, and Reuven, that's territory that God gave to the Bnei Yisrael. So although it's on the eastern side of the Jordan, and on our map here, it's called Ammon, which is where all this activity is taking place. Initially, at least, this was Manasseh, Gad, and Reuven territory. Manasseh is huge, isn't it? It's got a big territory on the western side and a big territory on the eastern side. All right.
Between the river and the sea, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
it
between
is.
the
It's
river
the
and the sea.
Euphrates.
That's
very
what it
much
should
is.
be. We're only on 23% of what was allocated to us by the League of Nations.
Right.
You know that?
Okay,
23%.
let's carry on where we're up to. So now then, where are we up to? We're up to verse 10. Yeah, so he gave the other people over to Avishai, and he said, verse 11, Jeffrey.
He said, if Aram will overpower me, then you will be my salvation. And if the children of Ammon will overpower you, I will go to save you.
Stop there. So he's split them into two, and he said, keep an eye out and see what's going on. And you'll come to help me if I'm struggling, and I'll come to help you if you're struggling. Okay, that sounds reasonable to me. Carry on.
Be strong, and let us both be strong for the sake of our people and for the sake of the cities of our God. And Hashem will do what is good in his eyes.
Okay, so there's your religious statement. Here we are doing this, L'Shem Shamayim. We are doing this on behalf of us, on behalf of God. We've got God on our side. Be strong and be courageous. Chazak v'nit chazek in Hebrew. Where have you heard that before?
Yeah,
The end of a book of the Bible.
Yes, chazak v'nit chazek. Chazak v'nit chazek. Be strong and let us strengthen ourselves. Right? Ba'ad imenu, for our people, u'ba'ad arei Eloheinu, and for the cities of Hashem. Where have you heard that expression?
Birkat HaChayalim.
Birkat HaChayalim. Very good, Peter. The bracha for the soldiers, we say Ha'omdim al mishmar artzeinu, who stand guard over our land, va'arei Eloheinu, and the cities of God. Our cities here, I'll come to you in a sec, Jeff. Our cities here are described here in Tanakh. I don't know if this is the first time in Tanakh that the cities are called Arei Eloheinu. Maybe Hannah, maybe you can ask Wikipedia that whether this is the first place in Tanakh where the cities are called Arei Eloheinu, the actual expression. But that is an expression which has found its way into our everyday liturgy. It's found its way into the prayer for the soldiers, a very important prayer, Arei Eloheinu. V'Hashem yaseh hatov be'einav. And God will do what is good in his eyes. And we're confident that God will do what's good in his eyes, and what's good in his eyes will be what's good for us, because we are fighting a good battle. We are fighting good against evil. We are fighting for our people. We're fighting for the cities of God, and we're fighting for the land. Now, nothing's changed. That's exactly what we do in every war that we fight in this country. We're fighting for our people, we're fighting for our land, and we're fighting for the cities of God. So I wonder whether this may be the source of that expression, Are Eloheinu. I hope so, because it would be nice for us to have found that. Yes, Jeffrey?
I'm not clear where our soldiers are stationed. Are they stationed on the east bank or the west bank? Now, looking at the map and the size of the area on the east bank, I'm thinking maybe the armies are stationed on the east bank. But we haven't got to forget that the real enemies were the Philistines, who were on the western flank. So he can't transfer all his armies to the east. He's got to have protection from the west.
Okay, let's unpack all of that. There's a lot in there. Where were the armies? I assume that the armies would have been on the west side of the Jordan. Why do I say that? Ammon is not going to allow a foreign nation to have a garrison in their territory on the east bank of the Jordan. I wouldn't have thought. They're a hostile nation, Ammon and David, Ammon and Israel. I imagine that they had a garrison stationed on the border being the Jordan River. Remember, the Jordan River is a poxy little thing. In many places, it's little more than a puddle. It wasn't difficult to cross. When we read the book of Joshua, it makes out like it's a massive big deal. They put stones in there, and there was Kriyas Yamsuf again, or the water split of the Jordan. We're not talking, in many places at least, a massive river here. I was, a few weeks ago, I was canoeing on the River Jordan with all of my family, including 2-year-olds. It's not a massively rapid running river. It's very easy to cross.
But that's today. I mean, it was a much bigger river previously. There was a lot less irrigation and taking away the water from the Jordan. So therefore, it would have been a much bigger river historically in those days.
Who says that? You just made that up, Michael.
No, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
He is right, Johnny.
Where's your evidence, Michael?
The book of Joshua.
But that book of Joshua was a particular place near Gilgal. Might have been a wide and fast river. It might have been the winter. Look at the. It was after the winter. Wait a minute, 1 second. When was it? When did Joshua cross?
Pesach.
Just before Pesach. So it would have been at its most swollen, because it would have been right after the winter. But there were, I believe that there would have been areas where it would have been easy to cross. And I believe, just to go back to Jeffrey's point, we'll come back to the River Jordan in a minute. I believe, to answer Jeffrey's question, I believe the troops would have been on the western side of the Jordan, ready to cross whenever was necessary. And as far as the Plishtim were concerned, and you're right, there's Gaza, obviously, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Lachish. This area here is the Philistine stronghold. We can assume, I think, for the moment at least, a bit like we've got at the moment, we gave Hezbollah a bit of a bashing earlier on, and they're a bit quiet. They're not finished, but they're a bit quiet. We've recently, in our story here, given the Plishtim a bit of a zet, and so perhaps they could leave less troops over there. Obviously, not they can't leave themselves open, and concentrate on the Eastern Front. Remember, to move troops over here is not so simple, is it? You know, you're all on foot or on, you know, on donkeys or whatever it was. It didn't have any troop carriers and helicopters and all that stuff. So I suspect there was troops there, but it's clear from Tanakh that they did move the troops over here and they did go into the territory of Ammon.
So
yes,
Johnny,
Paul. One sec, Paul first.
What about the tribes that were over there already? They're living there. There were, you know, Ephraim and Manasseh were already on the western side, eastern side.
So you're suggesting we go back to that other map. Where's our other map? Hang on. You're suggesting maybe that David had troops in the territory of Manasseh, Gad, and Reuven. Yes, it could be. Yeah. Yes, it could
Ammon's
be.
Ammon's further to the east.
Well, this is part of Ammon. If you look at our map over
no,
here,
Ammon's in that area.
Ammon is not necessarily the whole area. I don't think, because that picture is really a picture of the current borders of Jordan. Ammon was on part of Jordan, maybe further to the east.
That's true. That's true. I'm just thinking out loud now because we're almost done, and I've got to go in a minute or two. I'm just thinking about this now. Maybe this is how we'll begin the shiur next week. We do know that after Shlomo HaMelech, the kingdom split into two. We do know that sometime later, about 150 years before the destruction of the first temple, was the exile of the 10 tribes. What we also know from history is that the first tribes to disappear in terms of assimilation were these ones, Manasseh, Gad, and Reuven, for the simple reason that they were distant from the centers of Israelitism. I can't call it Judaism, but so I'm just wondering, and maybe we need to do a little bit of looking around here. I'll try and do a bit of homework. What were the state of Manasseh, Gad, and Reuven on the east bank of the Jordan at the time we're talking about? Were they still there as a force? Is it possible David could have had troops stationed there? If they were there as a force, I would absolutely agree that it would make perfect sense for David to station some troops over here in their territory in effect, that's their border, isn't it? So yeah, I agree with that. We need a little bit more
information,
a little bit more depth to our knowledge here. Yes, Jeffrey.
Well, I would say the very fact that there are 3 tribes on the East Bank, and there is the East Bank is elevated, as is part of the West Bank, and the area where the River Jordan is like a plain, and so any activity can be viewed in that plain in the Jordan Valley can be viewed from the East Bank and from the West Bank. Now, if you've got your own people on the East Bank, they can signal by way of fires and so on and so forth, activity, and messages could be sent like that. So you don't actually have to have the messenger sent on foot or on camel.
Okay, so this is becoming really interesting now. I mean, we've sort of digressed from the actual text, but it doesn't matter because it's really interesting to actually unpack all of this and look at it. So I would like everybody, I'm going to have to go now. I would like everybody, including myself, to do as much digging around as possible to find out what was the state of the east bank of the Jordan at this point. Did we have a control of that? Did David have control of some of that at this particular point? What was the state of Manasseh, Reuven, and Gad? And how were messages relayed at that time in terms of tactics. Very interesting questions. Let's do it again next week with all that information. Shavua Tov, everyone.
Good job.
Shavua Tov.
Thank you.